All right, today is Friday, July the 27th, and I'm back at Mr. Lett's office, and I hope you're recording all right, my dear.
This morning, see what we have.
Let's see what we'll talk about today. Today, I thought we might start and sort of go year by year from the day you started over with the city, and you could tell me who was mayor at that time, and if you can recollect who was on the council and what sort of relationships are going
Well,
on.
when I started with the city was when I was working at Link Community Center. That was back in 1949 after I left West Virginia State. And I came back and because in 1947 I was going out to Michigan State, 46, 47, I was doing volunteer work at a community center. And at that time, Mayor Bowerman was in office. And I served on many community projects. In fact, I was allowed to go with city officials to Dearborn because of my recreational background, serving the Department of Recreation, and that was in voluntary capacity. But then I took over the permanent job in 1949 when I left West Virginia State and came back here. And at that time, Mayor Bowerman was still in office, but in 1965, when I took over this job, I was brought back on this. I was brought to this job by Mayor Birmingham because the personnel department failed to put my name in the hopper for this job, even though I had made application for it. And I went to World's Fair. And so for a short time, I left the city and went with the Board of Education and starting up a Head Start program. In 1965, the National Head Start program. And I severed my relationship with the city from May until July, working with the Head Start program, and we were beginning to have civil disturbances in the streets, as you know, in '65. So Mayor Birmingham asked for me to come back to the city to work, and they removed the person who got the job as Human Relations Director and moved him into Housing Director, and I took over Human Relations Director, becoming the first minority in City Hall. That was 1965. So then after Mayor Birmingham, we've had Mayor Graves, and then we had Mayor McCain.
Well, how are the different mayors to work with? Were they remarkably different in their
Oh, definitely,
approach?
all of them. The most, I guess, all of them had different. I worked under Mayor Kriegel at the beginning when I first started Lincoln Community Center, then Mayor Ballmer, and then Birmingham, and then Graves, and then Mayor McCain. All of them are different in view of the fact that they had different personalities. Barham was fairly low key. Birmingham was a fairly liberal. Mayor Graves, who for a tenure of 3 years, with 3 sessions, was very aggressive, and sometimes he was considered an irritant because many developers would not build in the City of Lansing because he was really a gung-ho individual. But one thing about with Mayor Graves, you knew where you stood. He and I had many differences of agreement as far as affirmative action programs are concerned. And the city attorney was of the same clout. But newspaper articles would come out showing our differences. And even personnel individuals said, well, he couldn't find qualified minorities for city, and the newspaper made a lot of sensation, a lot of news clippings on the basis of our internal fights for equal opportunity. But Mayor Graves would let you know that it was not the minorities that put him in office, and he had no he had no need to respect their demands. So he was right up front. So
He was there, what, 10 years?
he was there 4 sessions. I think he was reelected twice. He was there 2 8-year sessions. He was there 3. I'd say 12 years, elected twice. But he came in after Birmingham. Birmingham was 69, and then I think Graves came in after him in 72, and McCain was about 81, something like that, 80, 81. The particular dates would be hard for me to recall. There wasn't any too specific, because the one thing that over my period of time hadn't been in office that stands high in my mind is the years that we went through the so-called civil disturbances and disruptions through all communities, which we had to work.
That started in, what, 65?
Well, civil disturbances actually isolated civil disturbances, which started back. We had our biggest one was in '64 when I was working at Lincoln Community Center, whereby there was interstrife between the cities and police. Problems were escalating on the basis that it was all over the country on equal opportunity, that civil disturbances, civil unrest was beginning to erode on the basis of equal opportunity, which in fact brought about the civil rights order and laws in 1964. And we had one of our biggest ones here in Lansing, and it started from police youth confrontation on the west side, and police were called in to quell the disturbance, which caused other individuals to get involved. Distance that damaged about 14 police cars, and several officers got hurt. In fact, chief of police got hit in the head with a brick, and it was quite a. That was one of our biggest ones here in Lansing. So now, that was before they started in '67 for the riots in Watts and Detroit, and the burnings in New Jersey, shortly after the civil rights law. Of course, Martin Luther King's death brought about too.
Well,
So,
what precipitated the disturbances here in Lansing so much in advance
well,
of the rest of the country?
Well, the civil disturbances were happening in many communities, isolated, on the basis of what was considered throughout the country police excessive force, the insensitivity of police department, law enforcement agencies against minority communities, which was primarily ghettos. And that's the word they used to use years ago. They used to use that word ghetto. And as long as they kept black folks in a controlled situation, that's where they ought to be, over there. But once that they begin to move out and little confrontation between police, we had confrontations downtown. We used to have what we called a gut on Washington Avenue, where young people used to come down on weekends and would drive up and down the street, up and down the street. And these are white kids who come from DeWitt and Charlotte and others, and come into our city and congregate downtown. But then the black kids started doing some of the same things, and they'd congregate, and the police would come down on them. And it looked like they were singling them out. So with this type of what they felt was discriminatory practice, caused them to develop some attitudes. So it kept eroding, and I'm working in the community center at that time. And on one occasion they had a confrontation between the black kids, which came from the west side, as they claimed. Those kids from over there came downtown and started lording in a parking lot, Kroger parking lot down on Washington Avenue, where community college is now. And they had a confrontation between them on the police officer. As you know, at that time we had no police officers on the police department. No black police officers, and no minority. And there was little little feeling between the black community and the police department. Little, that's just a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as long as they could keep them over there, it's fine. Well, the night that this broke loose, there was a fight in a house where black kids were having a party. And they called a couple of police cars on the scene to corral because the kids were out fighting outside, and they got a little rambunctious, so they had to call additional. So with the large number of police cars on the scene, it really erupted, the show of force. So the kids really were trying to prove what they're all about, and they
These were
talked a
just
lot.
teenagers, right?
These are teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
That was 1964. And it erupted and went all down the community, down the west side. Because see, at that time, black businesses were all up and down St. Joe, which is now the I-496 going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Main Street and St. Joe was two thoroughfares going right through the black community.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the black folks were staying over there on that side of town, things were all right. But the minute things disrupted, they had to send an all-white police force in.
Mm-hmm.
The attitudes prevailed in many other communities. And there was a lot of social unrest in many other communities at that time in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just prior to the 1964 legislation. Of course, King was walking too at that time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So with that type of attitude prevailed even in this community, which, as you probably know, was and still is highly conservative. Those attitudes did prevail, which seemed to permeate all the communities in the United States, which afforded Congress to initiate the 1964 Civil Rights Bill, equal opportunity for all.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had, now we were lucky though, we worked, and of course, that's what I'm saying, I was brought in this office in 1965 to work with community groups. And this community, just like other communities throughout the United States, we developed biracial committees, church committees where they were working together in a community relation committee. This committee was developed in 1963 as a committee. This is human relations, as a committee of 12 people. Mm-hmm. 1964, they had to have a staff person. That's when I applied for the job and didn't get it. Mm-hmm. A school teacher got it. 65, I came on the scene. Mm-hmm. That person sat in this office for a year, but was involved in the housing because we had what we called equal domain, where the highway was taking people out, just putting them out in the street, going down through, putting an I-4, as you see, an I-496 goes through our city over there. They were taking that out, and the majority of people from Washington Avenue here through to Clare Street were all minorities. Mm-hmm. And they had some civil rights cases. So this person who sat in this office as Human Relations Director, person Bill Mateer, who happened to be white, was dealing with housing problems, when really the thing was community problems on racial come up. So therefore, they moved him over to housing and developed a housing component and brought me in here as Human Relations Director in 1965.
Well, I didn't realize that. You know, when you come to some place and the interstate is there, you would think it's always been there.
No.
But when they proposed to put that 496 in there, had they, before that, done negotiation with those people they were going to displace? Or
no.
They just made the decision?
Let me tell you what happened on that. This city council sit here and negotiated with the city to set a highway down through that area over there. They decided that was the area they would take it through, which was in the case from Washington Avenue down through to Clare Street, which was predominantly black. People were buying property, blacks were buying property in that area on West Joe and West St. Joe from Jennison out, good houses. If you know Jennison out in that area, the McPherson district, good houses. Black folks were buying those houses, moving off the ghetto, because they used to live over near the railroad track where Oldsmobile wasn't expanded like this. All that area from Townsend, you see down here Townsend Street, all the way down to Birch, pretty near a mile. On that side of the highway, which you see now, was all blacks and Syrians. All blacks and Syrians, because that's where they lived. Oldsmobile was not that big, was not expanded that big. In fact, Lincoln School, where I worked, community center, was at the corner of Williams and Logan. You know where Friendship Baptist Church is?
Mhm.
The only building in that whole 12 square block area that still stays outside the gas station at the corner of Main and Logan. There's a gas station right there at the corner.
Shell station.
Well, it's Marathon now. It used to be Shell. It's Marathon now. Changed it. It was Shell. Used to be Golf, and it was Shell, and then Marathon now. But the church is the only thing there. But remember, this the way I call it the gut. That side of I-496, over to the river where Oldsmobile down into the, and to the left on Logan Street was a foundry. There used to be a foundry where black folks used. That's where they used to live. See, before you'll talk to people, if you tell you. Back when my folks came here in 1917, folks came in 14, 17, the war. My folks came to Lansing from up in Michigan, down here. There was nothing but a small Oldsmobile factory over there by the river and a foundry at the corner of Logan and, well, it used to be Isaac. It run down side the river.
It's south of Williams there.
It's south of
South of
Williams.
Mhm.
Williams Street's the only street in there now. But all back in the street was a streets called Cowles and Alberts. Albert was right next to the railroad track. That's where my two aunts, and my cousins lived on that street, right down near the river. But I used to go to visit them. And Syrians, call them Lebanese now, used to live over that area. And the factory, the foundry, big drop forge. That's where the blacks worked in the drop forge. Couldn't get an Oldsmobile. You couldn't. No blacks were allowed to work in Oldsmobile. Excuse me, were hired at Oldsmobile. Not allowed. Screaming tongue. But what happened is that when I was born and raised over here at House Street, between Ionia and this street over here this is Michigan Avenue. This is Ottawa. Next street's Ionia. Between Ionia and Shiawassee, I lived a mile down there because old LCC's right over here, and it used to be Lansing Central High School. And I lived on House Street, born and raised. I was the only kid that was born there because my sister and brothers, they were brought from up north when they come down here. And my dad got this house because when he came to this community, he wanted to buy a house. And he saw this Irishman. This Irishman wanted to sell his house because he was mad at these white folks. And so he sold to my dad right in this white neighborhood. So I grew up in a white neighborhood. I had to fight white kids. And then I go over on the west side, I had to fight the blacks. Because they thought I was a white man's nigger because I lived in a white neighborhood. Used to try to threaten, throw me in the river and throw me in the Perkwood. They picked me up bodily and throw until I learned how to fight.
Learned how to swim too.
And yeah, and I went back and found them. When I learned how to fight, I went back and found those guys. And I whipped some kids. Because my brother learned me how to fight and they also put me in the ring.
Is that how you got interested in boxing, from those experiences?
I had to learn how to fight. I didn't get interested in boxing. I was forced to box because I was fighting all the time. I was called black boy and nigger in this neighborhood. I'm going to school. In fact, before you leave, I'll show you the book I'll show you something here. Kathy, bring the book in, please. In my book, which I brought Kathy to look at, which is a memorabilia, one of my schoolmates who I went to school and I used to play with him, I used to go across the back lots to go over to play with him. And he put it in the book, sent it to me, in this book which they gave me a copy of. The only black thing in that whole picture, 3rd grade. And I used to fight all those kids. I whipped kids every time he looked up. I was fighting on the playground, and my sluts would have to come get Richard because he was fighting. But they would push me around, they jumped me. Of course, I fight 2 or 3 of them because they jumped this little black boy. He was a tough little boy. You see the picture here. But I used to fight all the time. My brother Faye went to Genesee Street School. He has to fight all the time. One that has, let's see, I want to show him my picture. Did you get through with it?
No.
No, I'll just take it back. I'll let you take it, but I want to show him something because this is interesting. This right here, look here, dear Dick. He sent this to Kathy. Kathy put this book together. All the sent these pictures back here. My cousin took these pictures here and sent them to me. I got these back. Whenever there, I'm sure that everybody in the 1930 third grade class at Michigan Avenue School, that's the little school down where I fight all the time, is thanking you for your service to this community, which are all love, and wishing you many, many happy years of retirement. Sincerely, Bob Dale. Bob, his brother Bill, and Joe, they'll not forget the other. We grew up and used to be over to. I used to fight. Look at here. The only black thing in that whole, there he is. That's third grade. He thought so much of me, he sent his only picture to me. And that's the way I looked. Look at that. They had a lot of kids, but look at that. The only thing, and all of them used to fight. The girls.
Even the girls?
I Gladys Fellows, she tell you, she comes in here now. Man, I used to run her home. Sister Beelan, that used to be in charge of the St. Lawrence Hospital, I pulled her out of a tree on her head. She'd tell you, Richard was meeting, and I used to run those, they call me nigga, I run them home, run them up on their porch. Boy, my mother was a big buxom woman too. She was big, she had some Irish in her. Big buxom over there. Of course, many of us got a little.
Irish has nothing to do.
Big buxomness.
But she was tough, I mean, and when those men would talk about whipping Mr. Richard Letts, she'd go up on their porch with me in her arms. She said, "You ever? What you got now?"
It's a picture of me.
Oh, is she in there? Let me
From
see.
your reception.
Are you ready? She in there?
Yeah.
Yes, she is. What you know? Well,
In fact, I got on the video too. They came and there were some of
yes,
us.
yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because I got that until I got 3 videos. It's really nice. Yes, you are. Saying something about you didn't know me too long or something like that. About what you knew and all that. Yeah. But these experiences that I'm sharing with you were really something that people in this day and time don't realize what I went through or my family went through. My sister, she too, she went to Michigan, and my brother John, the judge. Let me tell you about my brother, the judge, John Lett. We used to go across town. He went across town and got in a fight with one of those guys, and they cut him because he was a white man named, and he took a bottle and busted on the curb and run him up into the house and sliced him down. And I'll never forget when they brought him home from the hospital, the bloody sheets, because he was still bleeding, and this guy had sliced him down back of the head here. And the irony of the thing is that the guy who sliced him, his brother married my sister.
So you didn't hold it against him?
No, and his younger brother went to school with me. But we used to have to fight, violence between blacks, but always was one-on-one. Nowadays, violence in black is 1 or 2 or 3 beat up on one guy. It's much different than that. We used to have those fisticuffs. Kids would fight anyhow, but they still had that racial thing because we lived in a white neighborhood. We had to fight the blacks. That's the fights we'd have. But we developed, and that isn't what you're talking about government, but that's the change. But going back, I want to show you the territory from Townsend to Birch. That's 2 blocks the other side of Logan. All that's parking lot, if you'll note now. All parking lot. All Oldsmobile parking lot from the Highway I-496 over to the river or Oldsmobile complex. It's parking lot, Oldsmobile building. That used to be occupied by minorities. And even the gut down through the highway. And what I'm going back to, which I strayed from, when the highway started going through in St. Joe and Main Street over there, many black people were buying homes in that better area up there as late as 1961 and 63, buying homes and paying for them. When the highway had already started purchasing homes from Washington Avenue down, planning on putting that highway because the city had said this is where the highway is going to go through. And when they got out in that area out there to take those homes, the highway didn't want to pay the amount of money that people had already invested in the houses. So we had a lot of problems. Even civil rights took some cases. NWC took some cases. The city had to get involved, and we had meetings. And finally, the highway made restitution, and also they weren't paying as well as Oldsmobile. Oldsmobile at the same time was what we called industrial expansion, buying all those homes all over there too. They were, and people were moving, but we were pretty lucky that we worked with the realtor board. Although we found some who were channeling people in certain areas and forming another ghetto, channeling all blacks in certain areas, and wouldn't show them other parts of the city. That now that we've had this kind of transition, minorities are located all over the city. We have a fairly good integrated pattern, although many are still located in the south side over here, on Kalamazoo and Butler here. And of course, a number of them moved over to what we call Churchill Downs, out across Holmes Road out there, which is Churchill Downs. And that's where they started kind of a channeling area where they started moving people in. And in the case we got into the Churchill Downs investigation, we found that they were moving people at night, and some people look up and they'd have a black person next door to them. They find out 4 or 5 around this street. We found in the case of our investigation, I forget whether it was 68 or something like that, so that these realtors were, when they find these people get these get this money from the state or Oldsmobile, they would show them over there Churchill Downs, show them that area, wouldn't show them anything else in the city. And the whites called this office to get involved, and they put signs up, "We like our neighborhood, we want to integrate it." And they also went newswide that they wanted whites to be showing the same neighborhood, the same courtesy that blacks were being shown, instead of channeling all blacks in the neighborhood. And we come down on realtors pretty hard.
So that was sort of a direct outcome of the putting in of the highway then?
Yes.
Was the integration of
The integration of our city. The highway brought about a great deal of the highway plus Oldsmobile's expansion. See, people coming to this community would not realize that the concentration of minorities was over there by the river and the railroad, because the railroad tracks were over there too, right by the river, and that's where they were. And secondly, many of their occupations was at that drop forge, the Lansing drop forge. Excuse me, Lansing foundry. Lansing, it was drop forge too, but the name's interchangeable. Foundry, and you talk to people, founder of drop forge, those who are still living. But that's where you get your house. That's where they are. Where the black folk? No. Where the Negroes live in your city? Oh, over there by the river, over down by the river there. Come to town, and of course, the thing about it, my mother used to put up many people would come in from the south, Chicago, and the place. My mother used to put them up. We'd have as many as 2 or 3 families in our house, while they were trying to find places to buy or reside. And she put us, we'd be the last ones eating dinner. My brother, when I was with him about 6, 7 months ago, he said, "You know, I always wonder, where did we eat when all those people were in the house?" My mother used to put up a big boarding house. She'd bring them in. But anyhow, there's been many transition, and you wanted to talk about the government things.
Well, that's an interesting aside, because it shows how the government got involved in how the housing pattern changed based on some.
It changed on the basis of the highway and Oldsmobile, what we call industrial expansion and the highway. And it really did. You see, in the second thing, when that highway went through, we didn't have any low-income housing. Remember, in the 60s, not much low-income, especially in Lansing. So when they started displacing those people over there who were low-income housing, disadvantaged, there wasn't any place to put them because there wasn't comparable low-income housing. So what they would do, and we arranged with the highway, we sat with them many times.
Did it stop?
No, I don't think it did.
Oh, no.
What happened in sitting with the highway had started their first phase of displacement from Washington Avenue, which goes out across the river where the bridge is here, down to Clare Street. And like I say, the majority of people, I would say, down through here were all blacks and disadvantaged, poor, especially in through here, Townsend down through Logan. The majority of renters and people who are didn't have the money to really buy a house, even if they got, well, not even if they got, they didn't get, many of the people who were renting and stuff didn't get any money to relocate.
Mhm.
They only paid the homeowners.
Mhm.
See, that was never set in. When people moved, they paid homeowners, but didn't pay people who lived in the renters to relocate. So what we would do is, they were also purchasing the homes on the other side, Washington Avenue, out to, which is I-69, the one that goes on to Flint.
Mhm.
You know, it's way out there by East Lansing.
Mhm.
So they were taking houses all the way out Main Street and St. Joe out that way. So as they would secure those houses, which primarily were white on that side, those people were able to relocate in areas readily because realtors would find houses for them. So as they, and then they were a little better off. So as they would relieve their houses, because as soon as they found a buyer and they could get that state to start buying their property, they'd get out. They would move. So that left those houses vacant because they weren't going to get it moving to those houses for a year or two. The highway wouldn't start on that side turn. So they would allow us to move some of these people over here, over there, in order to accommodate. I was just wondering if I had it, but the other day I was looking through here, I saw so much. Anyhow, I used to take pictures of those things and put them on a map. I used to have them on a map, and it was interesting how I took the schedule. I don't think I got them here for you to see, but I used to have a map on the wall, and I have it pinned. And I had all the houses that in the red pen that was identified by state-owned houses. So when people would have to be displaced over here, we'd move them over here.
Mhm.
And they allowed us to keep them over there until we could get to the city. We were working on low-income housing, and then we finally built the Roy Fro out there,
Mhm.
and we moved them out there. But until that time, we never had any housing in the City of Lansing for low-income people.
So that was the first one?
Mm-hmm. Or Leroy Fro was the first one, yes.
Uh-huh. Well, how many low-income tax housing projects have there?
We got 3 projects now, 3 low-income projects. I don't have that here. I thought I'd show you the map. But how many? We have 3 low-income housing. We have Leroy Fro, Mount Vernon out there, and Hildebrand.
Mhm.
But we have what we call, because of the, let's see, but anyhow.
But those income-based houses, do they fall sort of in a in-between category, or are they city houses?
They're,
The income-based.
well, see, now that's the other thing that's caused a lot of concern. The housing, as it started out, was with the city. But the Housing Commission has now got independent and severed itself from the city.
How did they manage to divorce themselves from the city?
Well, they wanted to be independent, and they become what was considered self-subsidizing.
Who pays their salaries and stuff?
The income from the tenants,
Mhm.
people, and also federal government subsidize some of the housing, you know.
Mhm.
So their budget is based on federal government subsidizing plus the salaries of the tenants.
Mhm.
So, and they have certain grants that come in too.
Mhm.
But they're independent of the city
Mhm.
to the degree that the mayor appoints the commission. But their operation is independent of the city. In fact, just about 2 or 3 years ago, they stopped using the personnel department for referring employees, our department from screening for affirmative action,
Mhm.
and so they're on their own.
Mhm.
So any problems that come up outside of some, we had some complaints we had against their hiring practices that we had to investigate. That they're an independent unit comparable to the courts over here.
Mhm.
The courts are separate from city, although we help them. We help the courts in the personnel, and we stopped reviewing their hiring process.
Mhm.
but they're independent too.
So who serves as sort of a watchdog for their activities? Nobody?
Who's that? The
For,
Housing Commission?
Yeah.
Federal government's supposed to.
Oh, supposed to. Okay.
The federal government's supposed to come in here and give them a review and audit all the time. That's why they've been under audit recently on some of their, the word is mismanagement of money and things like that. And the federal government's come in on them for an audit. But the city doesn't audit them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They give a report, though, to the city, because the city, to some degree, has some responsibility, but not full.
Mm-hmm.
Because the city, if they find any loopholes, they turn them into the federal government.
Now, on these low-income housings, once they set them up, did they become primarily Negro, colored, or black, or were they just all
No,
low-income?
oh, there is a ratio. Being I have been working for all these years, the first set them up, there was a ratio of so many whites to so many blacks in those units. And those units, what we call, and by the way, the name is not public housing anymore, and I just was meeting yesterday in literacy, you might remember we were talking, it's called development, housing developments, because public housing has a very bad stigma on it, and based that there's been some misuse of those properties. We have those 3 developments. We also have 2 senior citizen development. We have the one over here on the corner of Seymour and Ionia, which belongs to the Housing Commission. In fact, that's where their main office is, on Seymour and Ionia. Then we have the one on South Washington Avenue, which is a senior high-rise development for senior citizens. Now, along with that, throughout our communities, what we call scattered housing sites too. Just recently, a year or so ago, they put in 91 scattered housing sites, whereby we also were involved in that and reviewing where they were putting, so that we know that they did not concentrate low-income people in fairly middle-class residential areas. That is concentrate 2 or 3 houses together, because it's a kind of a stereotype, or in that fact, a known fact, that some of the values of low-income people are not always, sometimes just 1 or 2 in there will cause them to bring their value system up to take care of property care. But when you put them in, and there's, like in these housing situations, there's no one to monitor it, the housing deteriorates without lack of care and monitoring. And just to build this house and put people in that have not had the resources of budgeting, housing training, and upkeep, houses will go down. So, especially when it's not their house, they're put in there they're in there because the housing commissions put them in there, and they have low income. The low income word, the low income when they may be ADCs, and not all the ADCs have the same values. Like a lot of people, period, don't have the same values of housing. For instance, myself, there's times, not just because I'm black, but there's a lot of white folks don't either. I let my grass grow out of control, or I may forget to pick up paper in the yard, and my wife gets on my case. But they'll stereotype and say, yeah, there, see, they go. But there's a lot of white folks do the same thing, that just don't take care of their property. And you have to have property values. You got to keep your lawn mowed and all like that. But being I was so busy running, sometimes my lawn not mowed, not, and I feel people,
do.
yeah, yeah. But you know what? You're lucky if you can find a handyman who's really conscientious.
Well, he comes out there and he'll mow the grass if he won't pick up anything else. He'll get the grass, keep the grass
right.
down.
Well, my brother's got a handy person that goes out to work, the one Fayette out on Rosemary, and Rose has to, she has to watch him all the time to be sure he gets the thing done. But just like me, I had a young fellow who helped me cut my bushes when they get high and all that stuff. But to get one who's conscientious, somebody they just don't do. I remember when I was a kid, I used to be the handy person on those people up and down Ottawa Street. I used to work in flower beds and cut lawns and wash walls and everything else, because I was what they called in those years houseboy, you know. But I made money. I used to wait tables. But you don't find us to wait tables now. We don't like that servitude. So there are many things that cause Lansing, for instance, in Lansing, show you changes. This used to be Old Hotel
Mhm.
over here.